Time to apply to colleges. Got any tips
It's that
for
time
me?
of year. You know what? It is that time of year. It is. People are applying for schools. And on the episode today, we are going to talk about some tips for applying to colleges and doing it very effectively. We have 3 great tips and we have a whole boatload of resources.
Okay.
Shall we dive in?
Yeah, what's tip number 1?
Tip number 1 is this. There is something called the Common App. And the Common App was a brilliant idea by some brilliant entrepreneur who said,
Carroll.
It was not me, but
okay.
I wish it was. Man. This would have been awesome. Somebody said, why do I have to fill out an application for every single university and college that I'm applying to? So instead, they created one common app that most universities, there's hundreds and hundreds of universities that will leverage the common app. And essentially, you give them a code or your username, they go out and they pull your application in, and it makes the whole college application process much, much simpler.
Nice.
So if you are not familiar with the Common App, go check it out, open an account, start filling out your Common App application, and there you can post all of the things like your extracurriculars, your grades, test scores, essays, and the like.
Yeah, definitely. And I went to college in 2010, so I also filled out a Common App, and it was very, very easy for me because I could apply to multiple colleges, right? Now, obviously, you need to pay for an application. So one thing to mention is that, even though it is easier, you still want to choose, the top 3 to 5 schools or whatever the case is, right? Not like 50. But you can use this Common App to your advantage, where you don't have to apply each time.
Yes. Okay, so here's number 2. Pursuant to Nick's comment about what you're applying to, which schools, we believe that you should have a list of schools that you're interested in, and what you're shooting for are 2 what we would call reach schools. 2 schools that you'd really love to be in. Maybe they're kind of your dream schools. They're attainable, but they're up there, right? You would have 2 schools that are basically a target school. So this might be, for some people, a state university, or maybe it's a private college that you'd like to get into. And then you've got sort of what we'd call your safety net schools. And these might be 2 or 3 schools locally that you just want to make sure you have a space in. At a recent college visit that I was at, the admissions person said, it's perfectly fine to apply to a number of schools, get accepted to a number of schools, and then withdraw your application after the fact. And actually, in some cases, doing that is a good idea because there's financial aid money to those schools that you apply to early. So ideally, have that list. Maybe it's 5 schools, maybe 6, but 2 in each of those buckets. The reach school, the target school, and then a safety net school.
Yeah. One thing I want to say on that is, so the school that I went to, for me, was a safety school. But in actually going, because before I had visited, it was a school that I wanted to apply to as a safety school. But once I went there, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So just know that, whether it's a reach school, safety school, target school, the application is just one part of the process. Visiting the college is a completely different part of the process as well. So.
Indeed. Very cool. Last tip that we're going to give you on applying for colleges and making it super easy. There are probably 3 or 4 things that you're going to need to have at your disposal right away as you apply to schools. They're going to be things like your grades, your transcripts, your test scores is another one. Third would be letters of recommendation from people at your school, whether it's teachers, maybe it's the principal, maybe it's someone in a leadership role at the administration, but at least 3 letters of recommendation would be good to have on hand as you begin to apply. And then last but not least would be things like your personal essay. Granted, you're going to have a personal essay in the Common App, but it's always nice to have at least one kind of long form personal essay in the hopper as well before you apply. Yeah.
Awesome. On Thriving Student Resources, there is an amazing resource that's personally my favorite, but it's the 2-year planning calendar. So as you're applying to colleges, this calendar literally lays out like month to month, semester to semester, the things that you need to be doing to get ready to apply for colleges.
Yes.
And a couple of other things that we would recommend in terms of when you're looking at colleges, things to consider are things like the cost of attendance, the size of the school, whether you want private or public, classroom professor to student ratio being 30 to 1 or 300 to 1. Looking at the different financial aid packages, also the feel of the colleges is also very important. And then the last one that is particularly of interest to me, and we've actually covered before in the past, is looking at the percentage of job placement within a particular major, within a particular field of study for that specific college. All of these are really, really powerful tips to be mindful of as you're applying to colleges, because it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. 3 questions I want you to ask as you apply to schools and you go on some of these college visits. Number 1 is, what is the graduation percentage, like the completion rate? So if someone starts in a major, what's the percentage of those students that actually complete the major? Number 2, what is the placement rate? So as students graduate, how many of them actually get a job in their field thanks to the university? And last but not least, one of the things that we find more and more is students are beginning to choose their school based on the value of the school. And the value of the school is the education that's provided of a good value relative to other schools that also offer the same major. So I want you to ask yourself as you tour these schools, would this be a good value relative to these other places, keeping in mind some of the considerations that Nick just mentioned as well. If you have any specific questions about this process, feel free to send them to us, questions@masteryofmoney.com. You can also find a slew of information at thriventstudentresources.com. In addition to their scholarship search engine, they've got an expected family contribution calculator and a whole host of other resources for you and your family to make this process easier.
Awesome.
Yeah. So until next time, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Join us next time on the next YouTube video or podcast. This is Mastery of Money. Good luck in your pursuit.